Hello everyone. Welcome to today's video where I will be unpacking the basics of working as a doctor in Australia, and I'll be doing a Q&A session guided by the number of questions that I've seen in my inbox. And sometimes it's very difficult to type away some of the responses because I find some of the questions quite packed, and sometimes I'm just wanting to, be in front of the person and explaining my heart out of how things work, so they understand and feel like the questions are well answered. If you are new here and you just come across my channel, my name is Anna. I'm a migrant doctor, mom as well, that lives and works in Australia. And welcome. And if you're my returning subscriber, thank you so much for keeping it here. Thank you so much for all the questions you guys send in, and thank you so much for the constant encouragement. And sometimes when I'm about to sort of, say it's taking too much of my time, I get a comment that just reminds me that this is helpful to some people, and so I feel obliged to just continue. And like I said, it's a Q&A question, and I'll just quickly dive into it. You'll see me referring to my phone just to look at the questions in there so that I know how and answer them just as they are. My first questions are from Miriam Dibagoya. And Miriam has a good number of questions set out here, and I'll just explain. So she asked, can you please talk about how was your first job as a GP? And she also would like to know how IMG functions in a healthcare system after landing to Australia. If I've worked as an RMO, what were my tasks? How was the writing patient's history, and what are the differences in Kenya? She also wanted to know what time I get on and I get off from work. What are the challenges I've encountered? If there's any special training while working here, and if people just assume you know the basics, or do they expect you to do the major procedures like thoracocentesis, and a few more things in there. So as you can see, it's quite a detailed question, and you can just reading it, you can tell that Miriam is keen to know how life generally as a basic or as a junior doctor in Australia is like. If you haven't watched my other videos, I have tried to address some of these questions, but today allow me just to quickly go through some of these questions. So the first one is, and I just want to start off by defining the terminology, because it's not only Miriam, but I've seen a few other people that are confusing terminology, like who's a general practitioner in Australia, because like in my country, Kenya, as soon as you finish your degree, bachelor's in medicine, bachelor in surgery, you do your internship, and thereafter you become, sort of a general practitioner. Although that's now starting to change, because now there's an introduction of family medicine as a fellowship, and therefore they're getting now family medical specialists or family physicians. So the general practitioner in Australia is somebody that has trained again. So I see a lot of people, when they say general practitioner, they essentially are referring to a resident medical officer. So in Australia, when you graduate, when you finish your medical school, you graduate, you become an intern, and then after a year of internship, then you become a resident medical officer. And for a resident medical officer, after a couple of years, some people go back to school, and then they become, registrars, and from registrars then it's consultancy, and then in between there is the definition of an SMO, a senior medical officer, who is essentially somebody that is very, very experienced in their skill set is very good, and they are working either for one reason or another they have not completed their training requirements, like passing exams. So they may have enrolled in a fellowship of emergency medicine, and they haven't completed their exams. They have a lot of experience, they have a lot of skills, they have Australian experience as well, and because they are not consultants per se, because they haven't completed their exam sessions, then they are called senior medical officers. But for a resident medical officer, after internship, you become a resident medical officer. A registrar, like I said, can be a accredited registrar, or a trainee registrar, or a non-accredited, or a non-trainee registrar. So trainee registrar is essentially somebody that's training on a program, hoping to become a consultant at the end of it all. And a non-accredited or a service registrar is one that's just has finished their resident medical officer. They've stepped up as a registrar because they have the skill set, but they're not on a training program. But because of their skill set, they have stepped up to become a registrar. So that's essentially the definition of terms. And for a general practitioner is somebody that has completed their fellowship. They are fellows of either Royal Australian College of General Practitioners or ACRAM. Rural, I forget, ACRAM, the full definition, but it's essentially College of Rural Medicine, I think. So it's somebody that has gone through the formal training of being a general practitioner, and they have a fellowship. So you'll find that they are the ones that are now called a general practitioner. So Miriam wanted to know what a typical day for a junior doctor is. So as a junior doctor, and I would suppose this is almost similar to what I experienced back in my country, Kenya. Depending on the rotation that you're on, because obviously as a resident you will rotate through various departments, so it will be medicine, surgery, ED, psychiatry, or whatever it is that you're rotating in. And depending on the rotation that you're in, start times can be different. So like a typical medicine job, most of the time you may start at 7:30 or at 8 and knock off at 3:30 or 4, so 8-hour job, and with a bit of a lunch break in between there, which is not really, designated, but you can take a break and, have something to eat. For ED terms, they may be varied. There's some places that start at 7. They tend to be 10-hour shifts, a bit longer. Start at 7, finish at 5. There are some places you start at 10. There's some places start at 3 o'clock and finish at midnight. So it's varied depending on the term that you're on. And then obviously you may rotate in a term that's after hours. So essentially you're covering the hospital after hours, or you're doing night shifts. So depending on what you're doing in a particular term, the start times and the end times may be different. And most of the time we get 40-week terms. So essentially you are expected to work 40 hours a week, and if you work overtime, then obviously you're paid an overtime fee, or an overtime to try and cover for the extra hours that you've worked. So that's it in terms of starting times, in terms of how much are you going to be working. And the other question she did ask is if you're supported or not, or if you're allowed to do very major procedures, as a resident, nobody will expect you to do a thoracocentesis. Obviously, I always say be a team player and offer to, assist. You can offer maybe to assist. And some of the bosses, if your experience is good, like you're coming from, from Kenya, and you've done ICCs and stuff like that, and you let them know, they're willing to stand by and watch you do it, so that, you improve your skill set and you're not just descaling. I find that very helpful because if you put up your hand and say, I want to assist, or you say, I want to attempt and do it, then they will support you, but nobody will expect you to just, do it on your own without support. People will always be there to help you, especially if you are a junior doctor. And that's why I always say, if you see a job that's been put up as a registrar job, or and you think that your skill set will not be good enough for that job, please don't take that job, because once you are employed as a registrar, people will expect you to work as a registrar. People will expect you to do the roles that are associated with registrar roles. So let's say, for example, supporting juniors, being there for code blues or acute medical responses and stuff like that. So if you feel your skill set is not good enough, or you're starting out and want just to experience the system before you step up, that is also something that you can do. And I find a lot of especially having worked in regional WA, I have found a lot of, specialists in their fields, ICU consultants in their countries, ED consultants, in their countries and stuff like that, or surgeons in their countries. I find when they come to Australia, they take up roles initially as senior registrars. So they have the skill set. They are very, very experienced, but obviously because of how the system works and them are waiting to be recognized as specialists on the specialist pathway, they take up these roles to start off, as registrars. So that's something to be aware of, even as you apply for jobs and even as you look out for jobs. A few other questions in here, but she was asking when I passed my AMCs and things like that, and how quickly I got used to the electronic medical records. So each hospital is different. The public hospital, each state would be different with its own health records. But just to summarize, as long as you know basic computer skills, as long as you can use Word, as long as you can type, you should be all right. You get an induction where they will show you how to do some of these things, and then you just practice on the job. So it's something that you quickly adjust to, or because we will order tests through the software. We will look at results through the software, imaging as well, sometimes discharge summaries, coming up scripts, all that will be online, and it's something that you will quickly just adjust to doing, and you will do it. And your colleagues who are juniors as well will probably show you, a thing or two. And I believe by the first week or so, you should be all right to go. Challenges I've encountered and advice you would give to a newly arrived IMG. Challenges. I think I've done a video on this. I think I've done a video on my first day working in Australia, and I've covered, some of the challenges in there. But essentially, to summarize, challenges will always be there, regardless of where you're working, whether you're in your home country or whether you're in Australia. But the question is how you will maneuver those challenges. Obviously, having lived in Kenya, coming initially, getting used to, speaking up and, expressing my opinion, learning to, speak up for myself as well. It is something that, and I've covered in one of my videos before, it's something different. It's one of the culture shocks that I've experienced, the fact that you are actually expected to ask for help. You are actually expected to call your boss if you have a very sick patient as a registrar, and they will come in. They will come in and see the patient. They will come in and support you, which is something that, I wasn't commonly used to. Most of the times, you would have to do a lot more for the patient, and your scope was wider. But here, with APRA and all that, you have to know where your scope is, what's the limit of your scope, because again, you don't want to be in trouble with your registration if you take on a role that's beyond you. So very, very important to acknowledge and to realize where your scope ends and when it is time to ask for help. And obviously don't be shy to ask for help, because this is the culture in this country. Nobody will look at you and wonder why you've called for help. People will actually wonder why you did not call for help, and they will ask you why you did not call for help. The other challenges, like usual, is getting used to the system, is being homesick, missing your loved ones, and having those days when you wonder, why did I do this even in the first place? Especially if you are already well established in your country and you're coming to start from the foundations to build yourself up. There are days when you will feel like it's not really, you'll ask yourself whether it's really worth it. But by and large, as you get used to the system, as you take on more responsibilities, as you graduate and, get yourself into a fellowship that you love, as you go along and as you get used to the system, you become more confident, you become more conversant with how things work. And the more you do that, the more you feel more comfortable in your role, and the more you make friends, you know where to get things that you need. And so look out for my video of adjusting in Australia. Once those things fall in place, because we are social beings, we are people that, you know, you want to socially belong. So once you get your community groups, once you get, you know, mom groups out there and stuff like that, you will realize that it's not as bad, and you quickly start, you know, adjusting. And the challenges, you look back and you go like, oh, that was fine. I'm okay. So that's that. Challenges will be there, but Miriam, you will surmount them. Somehow you will surmount them. And we are very privileged to live in a country where if you're struggling a lot, like people really acknowledge, you know, mental health, and people acknowledge whether you're okay or not. And you will realize that if you're not okay, it's just okay to say you're not okay. And people will sort of be understanding of that fact, and give you a bit of leeway to get help if you needed it. All right, so that was it from Miriam. I'll probably just cover a few other questions that I've come across. And one of them was asking, someone, Galifara, was asking, after getting registration, how did you solve the gap in your CV to get a job? I finished 3 years ago and I haven't involved in any practice since 2021. Fortunately for me, I didn't have any gap in practice. I was still working. So when I came to do my AMC1, I came in Australia, did my AMC1 in 2015, and then I went back home. You know, I went to continue to work at home, then came in 2016, did my observership, and again I went back home. And all that time was either during my annual leave, or one of them was actually a paid study leave. And coming back, obviously I didn't have a gap. So my situation may be different from yours, but essentially what you need to be looking out for is, what do you mean by recency of practice? You need, for you to get registered, you need obviously to have completed your exams, and then you have to have proficiency in English, and then you have to have recency of practice. And your recency of practice is essentially, have you worked for, you know, at least 4 weeks in a year, or have you worked for 3 months over three years? So if you haven't worked from 2021, I have seen a lot of people that I've interacted with who have told me, oh, I just went home for annual, you know, I went home for my holidays and I linked myself up with a hospital and I did 4 weeks in hospital. If you do 4 weeks in your home country or whatever country you're registered in, you do 4 weeks of work, that's enough to give you recency of practice over 1 year. And then obviously do other courses like ALS, BLS, and a few other courses that you can easily get online and do, you know. And some of the RSCGP websites are, you know, free. You can just enroll, get a number, and you can do that as well. And that will cover you for that. So that's it, Farah. You can definitely look at doing that if it's something that would be something that you would consider doing. Another question came through, and someone was asking about, does it matter whether I have my home country experience, whether, you know, in getting a job? I must say, from my own experience and the experience of other people that I've seen, obviously, having AMC1 and AMC2 both together is really good. And then getting, you know, your English done is good. And then obviously your CV, having some experience on board from your home country, probably 2 years or so, would be very good, especially when it comes to applying for a visa. Okay, and by saying this is that will ensure you have the skill set even when you start working, because you will either get to be registered as a level 1 or a level 2. A lot of people want to employ somebody that has level 2 supervision, so essentially people that can somewhat work independently obviously with support, but they can work independently, because level 1 supervision means you can't do after hours. You can't be sort of on your own per se. You will need to work during the hours. And I find some people or some employers may not really be happy, or it may be a bit harder for you to take up some roles without that experience. So if you are able to get your home country experience, that would be amazing. But obviously, each situation is different. Still put in your application and see how you go. But what I know is a bit of experience on board is good. Another question was about internship in Australia. Someone wondered whether they can come and do internship in Australia. I have interacted with interns in this country, and with studying in Australia, they are obviously local graduates who are foreigners. You get people that come from Malaysia or whatever other countries come and do medicine here. And then you get Australians or people who are already permanent residents or citizens in this country doing medicine. So obviously they produce their own doctors who are given first priority for internship. And my understanding is getting internship from another country to come and do internship in this country is difficult. And to be honest, I haven't met somebody that has come to do internship here. I haven't had somebody that has come to the internship here who has graduated elsewhere. My experience is it's quite competitive even for the local graduates. So definitely worthwhile to just do internship in your country. It will just save you a bit of time. Is it easy to get a job after AMC1? And a question about WBA. Can I do WBA without AMC1, and is it paid? I've done a whole video on work-based assessment, WBA, if you can refer to it. But in summary, WBA is essentially an alternative to doing AMC2. It's becoming extremely competitive to get onto WBA. I remember during our time, we were just 4 of us on the program, but at the moment they're taking up to 16 people, meaning a lot of people are expressing interest in doing it. Some of the hospitals are using it as a way to, fill up roles and vacancies, especially if they're having trouble getting qualified doctors like registrars and things like that. So registrars may be given priority over residents, but it is something that you can obviously explore. But my recent experience with one of the hospitals that offer WBA is you will need to have AMC1, and you will definitely need to have AMC1 before they can consider you even for just observership before doing WBA. So quite important to get that ticked off and before you try or attempt to apply for the WBA. And is it paid? WBA, you're working as a doctor, so they will pay you, but there is an amount that you pay to the hospital. There's an amount you pay to the AMC Council, Australian Medical Council, I think about $700, but then there's about 12 different hospitals charge differently, between $12,000 to $15,000 per year. But because you're being paid, you can work out an arrangement with the hospital where you pay in installments, and as you work, you're paid, and then you pay the hospital as well. Is it easy to get a job after AMC1? In the past, it was very easy to get a job. I think way back. But my understanding is it's getting much harder with just AMC1, and this is a bit sad because obviously, having been somebody that came in with AMC1, I still understand where you're at if you've done MC1 and you're hoping to get a job, and so a big part of me still says keep applying to various hospitals, keep applying, and if you have experience on board, who knows if you offer to do observership in the hospitals that are IMG friendly hospitals that can potentially see how good a team player you are and hopefully wish to have you on their team, and hopefully then you can get a job with AMC1. But unfortunately, it is getting harder. It's not impossible, don't get me wrong, I got my job in, when was it? 2017 with just MC1. But, and I know people that got their jobs just last year, but my understanding is it's getting tougher and tougher. And more so if you're overseas, because there are people that are locally, already living here because they have they're already on a visa, either, spousal or dependent visa or things like that. So they're already within the country. They've done MC1, they've done English. But obviously us, in our situation, living in whatever country you're in, you don't have a visa. It just obviously is something that's a bit sad that if they don't offer employment, then that would mean you need to do your AMC2. But like I always say, knock as many doors as you can. One door may eventually open to your AMC1. So do not just hear me saying this and you forfeit all your wishes or all your dreams of coming to Australia. Still apply, be persistent, send emails, call if you can, do observership if you can. Let people know that you are actually a good doctor, and they are missing out by not having you on their team. So essentially, those are some of the questions that have come in. A lot of the other questions are about general practice. And because I haven't, uploaded any of my general practice videos, I want to allow you guys, I will post my some of those videos, then maybe some of those questions will be answered, and if not, then I will have another Q&A session just to talk about general practice. It is quite a detailed area, the training pathways, the FSP, AGPT, all the different pathways that are there at the moment. I will be releasing videos soon about that so that you can, have a little look around, and obviously in future we will definitely have another Q&A. So thank you so much for sending those questions through. Thank you so much for your constant, messages of you're doing really well. Thank you for the videos. That really is encouraging because it tells me that somebody somewhere is getting help. And look, let's try and share these videos, because if you think they are beneficial to you, I believe they will be beneficial to somebody else. And that's why I do it, because I am where I am today, and I have reached where I am today because somebody sowed into my space. I got the information, and my desire is somebody that is wishing, somebody that has a dream to come to Australia can get this information and can be quick with the information and can apply and do what they need to do. And eventually, my joy is always when I get somebody who inboxes me and says, guess what, Dr. Anna, I am in Australia and I have a job. That is usually my biggest joy, because it tells me that it is possible. There is nothing impossible. So let's remember to share, subscribe, like, and comment as well. So then we grow this family, and and we encourage somebody. Thank you so much for watching.